Do you know anybody who doesn't listen to podcasts? So we've all got friends, family who are a little bit in the dark ages and maybe they don't even know what a podcast is. However, did you know that all of us who listen to podcasts maybe every single day, we are actually in the minority because 66% of adults in the US do not listen to podcasts, and that number's even higher for the UK and other countries. So we're actually in the minority. You may be thinking, well, so what? But if you have a podcast, I want you to think about why you have a podcast. Is it to help people, to raise awareness, to grow your business? Whatever the reason may be, what's most likely really important is to reach as many people as you can and have the biggest impact and the biggest influence that you can have on your desired audience. So I'm going to talk to you about ways that you can reach the 66%. And whatever your podcast is, I want you to forget about that right now, and I want you to just think about having a homebrew beer making podcast, so the best beer making podcast there is. And now I want you to meet somebody called Barry. Now, Barry is one of the 66%. He doesn't listen to podcasts. They are not on his radar at all, but he is an avid home brewer. He loves to make beer at home as a hobby, and he would absolutely love your podcast. And Barry currently has a problem with brewing a batch of IPA. And if he was to listen to your most recent podcast episode, it would solve all of his problems. He'd fall in love with you and he'd start listening to your podcast, but he doesn't listen to podcasts. So what does he do instead? So before Barry has even gotten out of bed in the morning, he is on Instagram, and today he's looking to find somebody to help him with this IPA problem, but he doesn't find you because you're a podcast. So how could you reach Barry on Instagram? So why not jump on the brand new IGTV and film a short video every time your podcast goes live, and then Barry might just find you on IGTV and you help solve his problems and he falls in love with you. But that didn't happen, so then Barry gets to work, and like any model employee, the first thing that he does is go onto Google and try and solve this problem he has with his beer. He does a text-based search on Google, your audio, you're a podcast, so he doesn't find you. So how could Barry find you on Google? So why don't you write a blog post every time you put your podcast live? Maybe a long form blog post, do some keyword research, try and help with the SEO, get found by Barry, and then you help solve his problems and he falls in love with you. But that doesn't happen. So on Barry's lunch break, he heads to YouTube. He looks for some video help to help with this IPA problem. And he doesn't find you because you're a podcast, so he doesn't find you on YouTube. Or what could you do to be found by Barry? So why not video record your podcast episodes, and then you could create either highlight videos or just the whole podcast episode on video. And then Barry may find you and you'll help solve his problems, fall in love with you and listen to your podcast. So that didn't happen. So now Barry's on his way home and he's looking on Twitter, looking again for somebody to help him. He's starting to get really frustrated with this problem and he doesn't find you because you're a podcast. Or what could you do to be found by Barry on Twitter? So why not run a Twitter chat? Every time your podcast goes live, you could have a regular day and time every week, claim a relevant hashtag, and Barry may have found you, got involved in the discussion, you help solve his problems, falls in love with you and listen to your podcast. But that didn't happen either. So there are so many other places that Barry could have gone. Facebook, LinkedIn, Medium, Pinterest, but he didn't find you because you're a podcast and you weren't in those places. So the result was a terrible batch of IPA, a really bad batch of beer. Loads of his friends were unhappy. He was unhappy. A bit of a disaster. But there's an epilogue to this tale of beer sadness, which is that 2/3 of your potential audience will never hear your voice if you do not have a strategy in place to repurpose your podcast episodes into different formats and to go into different places so that you can reach new and different audiences. So the idea I want to spark today is to think about how you could reach your 66%. What could you do to repurpose your podcast to reach the 66%? Okay, so to conclude, I'm just a girl talking to podcasters, asking you to find your Barry and get him to fall in love with you.